covering the community, events, and people of Georgia, Carolina. This is the Means Report. Here is Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Means Report. It's been a lonely week without you. So glad that you're back. Hope you're surviving this heat wave. You know, we tape on Thursdays, but the forecast is calling for triple digits through the viewing of this show on Sunday at noon. So I hope you all are faring well as we deal with these triple digits. It's to be expected, I know, but it's still an awakening, isn't it, every time we hit the peak of summer. We do have some great information coming your way over the next half hour. First of all, for employers and potential employees in the job market today. And I know that you hear so much news about how tough it is out there, but today we want to offer encouragement both on the employer and the candidate side of things. And Brent Mallek runs a company that does just that. So we'll get into what his company does and how it can help people find employment. And it can help employers find good people to work for them, make that good fit. A little bit later in the broadcast, we're going to be meeting and hearing from Dallas Duff. Dallas is a local songwriter who has taken great pains to write a very special tribute to some of the fallen officers in our area. And it is a song that is getting some attention. It is a song that you can find on YouTube already. And so we'll show you a little bit of that. We'll talk to Dallas about why he wrote this heartfelt song and the reaction that he is getting, not only from people who like music, but from members of the law enforcement community as well, who've been very touched by that. And of course, our question of the week, the ASU-GHSU merger. What should it be called? A lot of you all chimed in with your suggestions. We'll know the final name in a few weeks, but we want to let everybody know what the Means Report viewers thought that new school should be called. So that's all coming up over the next half hour, but let's begin with Brent Mallek. He's been kind enough to stop by. Brent runs a company called Talent Focus Consulting, and Brent, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Brent has vast experience in the human resources field. He knows what people are looking for on both sides of the issue, if you will, when it comes to the job market. So let's first of all take it from an employer's standpoint. How do you help them, I loved what you said, find human capital? How do you help them make sure that they match their needs with an individual's talents?
Sure. Well, the notion of human capital, I think, is really important. And businesses invest in many different resources as they build and grow their business. And the human talent that they bring in is indeed a capital investment. It's making a dollar choice to spend it on human resources and making that investment and doing so in a way that provides the biggest return is, I think, critical to a business's success. And I think the notion of how a business makes that successful investment is something that we've historically relied on the interview process.
That's right.
And unfortunately, a typical interview process, Brad, results in a top talent performer only 17% of the time. So less than 1 in 5 chances using a normal interview process will we pick the absolute best talent. And what we do is try and work with businesses on identifying the criteria that are necessary to raise that bar and improve those odds.
Well, you're right. An interview, you could have as little as an hour, perhaps as much as a day or two to try to judge somebody and decide if they're a good fit for your company. What do you do on your end? Can we look at you as the person who does the interview and takes that off of our hands, or would the company who has retained you still interview the person as well?
Well, talent-focused consulting can do either. However, most of the time, I prefer to teach the company the proper techniques and ways to interview. And most organizations that have done it for a while are pretty good at the actual interviewing process. The piece we add is through talent profiling, and we really look at what are the components of an individual who's already in the organization, performing the job at a top level. What does that person look like? What is their cognitive ability? How quickly do they learn, and how do they take information in? And the alignment of those things is highly important to successful fit for the job. So as we look at those components, and then we add behaviors to it, and we measure those behavioral components, so you have a triple-edged sword, if you will,
yeah.
a cognitive ability, a behavioral assessment, and then a job-focused interest component. And those three together really help us identify a good fit for a particular job.
You mentioned that sometimes that good fit comes from within an organization, but do you have a bank of talent available to search through, or a database? How do people get their names and their qualifications on your list so that your company remembers them?
Sure. I don't do recruitment per se. I don't have a data bank. We're not, there are other businesses in the CSRA who do those kinds of things. We work with those kinds of businesses as well. But the notion of an individual going to the job market, I think that the ways we do that have changed a little bit over time. I'm old enough to remember when we opened the Sunday paper to find a job, and we looked in the help wanted section, and the bigger the ad, the better the job, and we kind of focused our way from there. And I think that has changed, and we've really gone to social media, we've gone to internet blogs, we've gone to company websites, we've really become electronically dependent on how we find the employer that's going to be a good fit for us.
I'm with you. I have one foot in the old school way of doing things and one foot in the new school way of doing things. From a job candidate's standpoint, very quickly, from a potential employee's standpoint, can everything be handled electronically these days? I still wonder if it's okay to email a resume. I still wonder if it's okay to write a thank you email. Are you finding that these things are, yes, very acceptable and very appropriate when you're in the job market?
Yeah, I think they are acceptable. In fact, I think they're almost mandated by many employers.
Yeah.
They don't want to have, quote, snail mail crossing their desk today. But I think the piece that's missing, I think that we've become so reliant on the electronic resources that the click and hope method of job application, I think, is missing some of the human element. And I think that yes, click and hope. Click and hope that resume or that application gets seen, but still follow up, still use your networking, still try and make a connection with somebody in that organization who can put a human face to the resume that was posted electronically.
When someone retains talent-focused consulting, what kind of employee are they looking for? Or is it a range of employees, a range of positions from managerial down? What do you see?
It could be any level of position, and we tailor our assessment piece, we tailor our job profiles to the type of position that the employer is looking for, whether that's a customer service type of position, whether that's a position in a healthcare organization, whether that's a leadership position or even an executive position. We have products and resources and tools to be able to create that job profile we talked about around the specifics of that particular position. So we're not assuming that it's a one-size-fits-all. It's very unique to the organization and to the position.
Is there a timetable typically that an employer could expect from the time they reach out to you and say, find somebody for me, and the time you say, okay, I got it?
Yeah, it's difficult to answer that question because it depends on what they're looking for. I mean, if we're looking for, that very highly specialized engineer, let's say, in a company that there's 7 of them in the U.S., it's going to take us longer to help them identify what the top talent looks like. If we're looking for a more open type of position, a customer service position, let's say, the talent pool is much greater. So the question then becomes, what does that person and that employer need in terms of their customer service that's unique to them? And we can really help them identify that.
What about going back to the potential employees side of things, the job candidate side of things? I like what you said before the broadcast about somebody getting in a situation where they don't match their talents with the opening, and that can lead to some pretty quick job dissatisfaction. What would you say to people out there who are desperate to find a job and who want to jump at that first thing?
Yeah, that's a tough question on both sides of the coin, from the employer perspective as well as the employee. And I think the reality of that is that people today in the unemployment sector that we have today, and somewhere in this 8 to 9% number, we're getting better. It was 11 or 12%, but I think the area is down around 9% today. With people unemployed at that level, people are taking jobs because the job is open and they need to work.
That's right.
And I think the difficult piece for that, for the employer side, is, am I selecting a candidate who's here because they really want to be here, that's really the job they're interested in and they're going to be into that job long term? Or am I taking somebody who's looking for a place to land because they need to work? Similarly, on the employee side of things, I need to work, I'm going to take a job. But I would offer a sense of caution on both sides of that. And I think the issue, it really falls to making sure there's a good fit. We want long-term relationships. The last thing an unemployed person wants is to take a job and 6, 8, 10 months later to be again on the unemployment side of things, looking for another job. You know how difficult that process is. Let's do it right the first time.
What kind of leadership training and leadership offerings does your company have to come into an organization and to help them with that? Because that's something that's constantly needed at a company. It's not just a one and done thing.
Absolutely. Leadership is key to a business's engagement with their employees. And we do team building work, we do leadership development work, we do coaching. We do a lot of work with identifying the difference between a manager and a leader and helping the person who owns the business or runs the department to identify what's different about those two elements, what's different between being a manager and being a leader. And we really try and move people along to the leadership side of things.
What is the difference between being a manager and a leader? Wouldn't you say that one of the elements of that is never having to say, I'm the boss or I'm the manager? You know, if you can just cultivate that respect from the get-go, isn't that one of the greatest qualities, that your example and your work ethic is what lets people know that you're the manager or the leader? It's unspoken, a lot of it, right?
It is, and I think it all starts with a good trust between the parties, between the boss or the manager or the leader and its employees, and recognizing that if there's a high element of trust there, the employees are able to speak up, they're able to have input to the organization, they're able to give their 2 cents worth, if you will, to that leader. Sometimes that leader's going to manage by consensus and try and take all those pieces of input and make a good decision. And other times they're going to say, thank you for your input, I appreciate it, and here's the direction we're going.
Right.
I think that agility is the talent that a leader really has to have, is the ability to take that input and make those moves in a way that's best for the organization and the people, while still maintaining the trust, that I'm not just giving you lip service, that, you know, oh, thank you, Brad, appreciate your input, but we're going to go a different direction.
Right.
And you walk away feeling like, well, why did he ask? I think it's important that you feel like, well, I'm glad he listened to me, even though we went a different direction. That builds a long-term trust.
Let's wrap it up once again from the employer's viewpoint. Do you find the talent pool to be richer than ever when it comes to the people ready to fill these positions that you're retained to fill because of the job market, because of the economic situation? It seems to be, from a layperson's perspective, that if a company brought you in and said, find somebody for me, that you could do that faster perhaps than you could 20 years ago, because there are a lot of good people who are floating around out there.
I think there's some volume that's in the market today that would make it seem easier, but I think the challenge is that the job has changed. The job world has changed.
Sure has.
And what we're looking for is a different element than what we were looking for 20 years ago. If we were a manufacturer 20 years ago, I was looking for somebody who could do the same repetitive type of job over and over and work an assembly line, for example, on a daily basis for years on end. Today we're looking for folks who provide service, who provide a human element to the business, perhaps an electronic media strength that we didn't need 20 years ago. So I think what we're looking for is different, and I think that's the challenge we see. The body numbers are good, but the talent pool and how we fit those people to their jobs continues to be a challenge for employers.
Well, Brent, a wealth of information in just a brief time. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you. Best of luck with everything. If you're looking for that match, if you need to make that fit, employers who are out there, call Talent Focus Consulting. Get Brent, retain him, and he can help make your company a better place.
Thank you.
When the Means Report continues, we're going to meet Dallas Duff. He is that songwriter paying tribute to the men and women of law enforcement, some of whom, as you know, have laid down their lives for this community. We'll meet him and we'll hear his song next.